Hello, my name is Tim TenClay, and I am, among other things, a labyrinth facilitator. About a month ago, I turned 50, and as I was approaching my 50th birthday, I made a list of 50 big things that I wanted to do between my 50th and 51st birthday. And since labyrinths have been a part of my life for going on 30 years, it made sense that some of those 50 things would have to do with labyrinths. As I thought about my options and all of the ways that I use labyrinths in my life and ministry, it struck me that the use of finger labyrinths is the one that I am least comfortable with and use the least often. So, one of my commitments was to spend 50 days tracing a finger labyrinth every day. I decided to do that the 50 days leading up to World Labyrinth Day. And so, just a few days from today, those 50 days will start. Some of you are joining me on that journey, and some of you are joining me on that journey having never done anything with a labyrinth before in your life. And so this video, nothing fancy, is meant to be a short introduction to the use of labyrinths, and specifically the use of finger labyrinths. There are a lot of different ways of describing what a labyrinth is and isn't. Many labyrinth facilitators use a fairly complicated definition, but mine is quite simple. A labyrinth is a long path wrapped up into a small, safe space. Unlike mazes, a distinction we can make in the English language, labyrinths don't have to be solved. They aren't complicated. There are no choices to make. There's nothing that has to be overcome. They are not intended to confound. A labyrinth is simply a simple path leading from the entrance to the center and then turning around from the center back to that same entrance, which becomes the exit. Of course, there is no single labyrinth design or approved labyrinth design for this or any other labyrinth use. Feel free to use whatever you have at your disposal, whether it's a 3-circuit or a 7-circuit or 11-circuit, whether it's something commercially made or crafted by a friend of yours, or even just printed out on your computer or created from a seed pattern with a pen and a piece of paper. Whatever labyrinth you feel called to, or whatever labyrinth you gravitate toward, that one's perfect for our next 50 days. For my part, there are 2 that I plan on using. This one, which is brand new, I just got it in the mail a couple of days ago, made out of wood, out of Purple Heart. And this one, which has been the labyrinth made out of leather that I have taken with me every time I've traveled for the last 7 or 8 years. Last summer, it went to Paris and then on pilgrimage to Chartres with me and my daughter. And a few years ago, it went on the Camino Primitivo with me. I like that I can bend it up and shove it in my suitcase or in my backpack, and it doesn't take a lot of space or weight. Whatever you decide, the most important thing to remember is there is no right or wrong way to use a labyrinth. What I'm going to talk about today is simply some suggestions, some things I've learned along the way, and some things I hope you will find helpful. There are, by definition, 3 main parts to any labyrinth experience. The movement from the entrance to the center, the time when you're in the center, and the movement from the center back to the entrance or the exit in this particular case. I usually imagine a labyrinth experience in 5 parts: an introduction, focus, question asking or intention setting time, entrance to center, 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 back to entrance and exit, and the time at the end to reflect and wonder, maybe even journal on any questions or answers that arose during my time. As I go through those 5 movements, I usually start out with something very similar to heart math, focusing my attention on the area of my heart. Imagine my breath flowing in and out of my heart or chest area just a little bit deeper and slower than usual, and finding an easy rhythm that's comfortable. Then I warm up my labyrinth. I just take my hand and rub it around as the labyrinth warms up energetically and physically, and as I focus myself and ask any questions or thoughts or intentions that I might want to focus on. Then when I'm ready, I take my hand to the entrance. I'm going to introduce you to 3 different ways of tracing a labyrinth, but I'll get to that in just a little bit. As you work your way to the center, there are different ways of imagining what's taking place. I often spend time imagining what has to be released, what I need to let go of, What needs to change for me to be able to find answers and hear what I need to hear so that I can better become what I need to become? I, in my own practice, refer to this as the approach, because that's what's closely related to the liturgy that we use in my religious tradition. And as I prepare to enter the center, I prepare for whatever I need to hear and know and experience. And I take as much time as I need in the center. Sometimes I set my labyrinth down and I just sit here and I journal. Other times I keep my hand kind of focused on the labyrinth. And eventually I work my way out from the center back to the entrance or the exit. During this return process, I ask myself, what kind of response do I need to have to any intention that I set, or question that I answered, or response that I felt toward a question? I happen to believe that we often have answers inside of us that we don't know we know, and that the labyrinth gives us access to those answers. I also happen to believe in a divine being that is willing to speak to us and send spirit to us to guide us and teach us and lead us. And as I work my way back to the entrance and the exit, I prepare to respond and re-enter and return to the world around me. And then I warm myself down, usually by simply rubbing my hand counterclockwise on the labyrinth. Again, there's no right way or wrong way. You don't have to set an intention or ask a question. You don't have to seek any specific answer or go with any particular purpose. The labyrinth keeps your body busy so that the inside of your heart and mind and maybe even soul can raise to the surface and help you become more what you were created to be. As I mentioned, there are 3 different ways that I tend to use a finger labyrinth. One is to set it on a table and to simply use my finger or a pencil or a pen or a stylus or a crayon and just simply trace the path as I work from the entrance, the center, spend time in the center, and then work from the center back to the entrance. If you find that that happens too quickly, or that happens without enough engagement for you, many people recommend that you use your non-dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so if I take my left hand and trace the labyrinth with my left hand, that keeps my body just a little bit busier and my brain just a little more engaged so that my inner self has a little more freedom to raise to the surface. For me, both of those approaches are usually not quite enough. So I use a labyrinth that I can feel well with my hand. I hold it in my non-dominant hand, in my left hand in my case, and I trace with my right hand, but instead of tracing with my hand, I move the labyrinth and keep my tracing hand in the same spot. So the labyrinth is constantly moving. Both of my hands are engaged, and I am busy enough that I can even close my eyes and follow the pathway without getting lost along the way. In this case, like walking a labyrinth, I often find myself just a little bit surprised when I get to the center, happy to be there, and a little bit amazed that it happened so quickly or so inattentively in the process. I find that helpful as I'm tracing a labyrinth. Perhaps you will too. Finally, before I let you go quite yet, it's important to remember that labyrinths can be incredibly profound and transformative, or sometimes not at all. Sometimes the answers that we're seeking we don't find right away. Sometimes the things we are concerned about and the wonders that we are wondering don't resolve themselves right away. That's okay. It's perfectly normal and acceptable and reasonable and will eventually be your experience. If you find that you have traced a labyrinth for several days in a row and found no answer even when you have asked the same question, no need to be worried about that. Take your time. Allow things to work inside of you, and over the course of days, weeks, months, sometimes even years, you may look back and find out that something started along the way, and that the answers were working their way through your system, through your heart, through your soul, through your mind, through your very being, and you just weren't quite ready to receive them. So over these next 50 days, you may have a life-changing, transformative experience, or you may not. One is not a success and the other is not a failure. Simply take the time, follow the path, and you be you. Go in peace.